Hi, I'm Brian Carlin, and I am chairman of the team of elders here at, where are we? At Quest. And thank you. Oh, I almost said first free, huh? Oh, my goodness. All right. And I'm also the drummer. How weird is that? Okay. Well, I want to welcome you to really a different kind of worship service today. This morning is our first annual congregational business meeting and celebration. And before, yeah, right? How cool is that, right? Okay. So before you run for the doors, and we know if you do because there's only one door up here, right? So, I think you might find today to be a little bit different than most of the church meetings, business meetings you may have attended in the past. You might even find it to be informative. You might find it to be uplifting and maybe even worshipful. If you're visiting with us today, this may be your lucky day. You might have stumbled on the most efficient way to understand what this body of believers is all about, and we hope that you find it attractive and inviting. If you're a veteran of church business meetings, then chances are you have found those meetings to be, one, either a bore, as they drag on for much too long, or you may have found them to be a sometimes mean-spirited debate, a time when, for one reason or another, the ugly side of us seems to come out. Well, we've designed today's meeting to be neither of those. As a matter of fact, if we're successful, it'll look much more like a worship service than a traditional church meeting. Now, to be fair, we've really had a good portion of the church meeting in the form of 4 town hall meetings we've held over the past month. And that's allowed us the time to ask questions and provide feedback on the 2 issues that we'll address today. So the business that we conduct today will not be much more than a couple of votes and an affirmation of our new members. More importantly, we want to take a look back and reflect on what God has been doing through us. We want to celebrate what He's doing today among us, and we want to look forward to what we think God is leading us to in the near future. And through it all, we want to look up and worship the God that so powerfully works in us. So to get us started, we've invited Al Frank, the Regional Associate Superintendent of the Central District of the Evangelical Free Church of America, and which we more fondly call Friend of Quest, to help us look back and reflect on the journey that God has led us through this past year. Al?
Thanks for having me to celebrate with you today. I want to take you back to 2012. I think we were at the Wolf, which we often meet there, so it's probably there. But I remember asking Kevin a question. I said, what do you picture? When you picture this church plant, what is it that you picture? And he said, I'll never forget, a kaleidoscope. And I said, what? He goes, you know, a kaleidoscope. You look in through one end and through the other end, the light is coming in, and there are little mirrors in there, and the light is reflecting off of the mirrors, and it's beautiful. And I said, oh. I was a little worried at that point. Wasn't sure what he was talking about, but over the next couple of hours, just vividly and passionately, Kevin began to describe you. I mean, he had it nailed. He was describing what you would become. And I began to see that over those couple of hours that God had been giving Kevin a vision of a church plant for many years. And it rolled out of him like water that day. And I got so excited because I knew this was going to be special. I said, Kevin, this is going to be a spiritual battle. Because what you're describing is taking enemy ground. I said, you've got to have a prayer army. We decided we'd have a prayer walk, remember? I said, well, that's a great idea, but where should we go? He said, I don't know, there's something about that area near the intersection of Clarkson and Clayton. Seems to be a good spot to go, right in there. He goes, we'll look like fools, but let's march around the parking lot out there. And we did that night. And a lot of you came. And I heard Kevin praying the vision of this place. And I heard many of you praying that same vision. think it was the week after that, it was just within days of that a few of us came here to Crestview just to come and take a look. I'd never been in here. I remember walking in through those doors and just having a sense that this would be the place, that God was building bridges here. So then we began to have paloozas. Lots of paloozas. You guys are a world record holder for most paloozas of a church plant. But that was a good thing because you got to know each other better and you got to invite people in and you got to hear this glorious vision. And you also got to eat. You eat a lot here. You even named your small groups BLTs, you know. But God working through those and developing disciples and growing us and transforming all of us, myself included, ministered to by you. So then, began meeting, worshiping here. Began seeing things like the church picnics and the baptisms at the Loafman's house, some of the best times of worship I've ever experienced. And last year, it was obvious to us as I stood and represented you before the church planting board. You made it very easy on me to make the case that you should be brought in as a full member. And in March at the district conference, we welcomed you in. And just on behalf of the Evangelical Free Church of America, let me let you know that it is a grand, glorious privilege that you are a part of us and that we're a part of you. You have become a kaleidoscope reflecting the light of Christ and the life of Christ and the love of Christ. May God continue to bless you. And may God perhaps give you children. Quest West sounds good to me. That maybe as a church plant, you will be a church planting church plant. May your tribe increase, and may God continue to bless. Amen.
As we think about, let me give this, Karen. Karen, this is for you. As we think about what we wanted to do today, we wanted to talk about the past, we wanted to talk about the present, we wanted to talk about the future, and we wanted to talk about the always. And so we've selected 4 very simple little things that we want to talk to you about the past. I'm going to start, and then we'll have Steve, and then Jake, and then Karen. In this whole vision that we had of what this church would be, one of the interesting things has been, I think the Lord has said very clearly to us, hey, Kevin, I have a vision for this church too. And it might be a little bit different than yours, but mine's more important than yours. Okay? So why don't you give up yours a little bit, or at least kind of the ownership of it, the holding on to it too strongly, and why don't you let me have my way? So we discussed that for a while, and just so you know, he won. And but in the process of that, there have been some things that have really been neat. What I'd like to address right now is the fact that this church, he is the head, right? He is the head of this church. This is his church. It is not mine. It is not ours. It is his. He owns this. He is the brain. He is the central nervous system through which every piece responds to and takes its orders from. But then one of the unique things about this church is it's also a place where each piece is connected to each other, right? That's you and I just connected to each other. And there is no way that this church goes anywhere, in any way, in any shape, without everyone involved. And we would probably just like to say to you, we observe, and I think you do too, the amazing level of volunteerism and work that so many people put into this. And if I started naming places and people, we would probably be inappropriate. There are just so many places, right? From setup and breakdown, here I go, setup and breakdown, to kids ministry, to young people, to the student ministry, to the different BLT leaders, and just on and on and on and on, and how many people are investing. And we just want to say we acknowledge that, and we have tremendous thanks for all of the amazing sacrificial volunteerism that happens in this church. That's what makes it great, right? what makes a church great is its head is beautiful, that's Christ, and the body works together really well. So, man, we love you guys, and thank you so much for your involvement, your investment in this church. Now, there's some other things you guys have done amazingly well, too. Steve would like to reflect on a few of those.
Yeah, you guys, hello? We good? All right, awesome. You guys have also, not only of your time and talent, but you guys have just been amazing with your treasure as well. I mean, just from the general ministry and the different ways that you provide for the outreaches, it's just been a blessing. But we wanted to focus on just two areas, and one is Advent Conspiracy. Every Christmas Eve service, what we collect, those monies are donated to a specific cause. And you guys, over the past 3 years, have donated over $27,000 to the Advent Conspiracy. In 2012, we did the Syrian refugee. We collaborated with some churches here in St. Louis and sent monies over there, and we donated over $5,200 and to help the refugees crossing over the border in Jordan. In 2013, our own Jim Brandt, he had a relationship in the Philippines, and they were hit with Typhoon Haiyan, and so the monies for that Advent Conspiracy went over there to help with food and materials and water to help rebuild over there. And Jim was on the ground overseeing that while it happened. So it was just a really amazing experience for him and just a great opportunity to come alongside people there. And then in 2014, we went to Haiti. We had a team that went there. We were able to help Madame Zette with a new home. We were able to help, we partnered with Wish, and we were able to help with continuing efforts in building out their community library. And we were also able to come alongside some local Haitian families and help them as well. And that's actually for this next year. I know we're in the past, but I'm going to briefly tell you about the future, the present and the future. This next year, we're going to focus on Haiti again. We'll have a team going there in February. So just wanted to give you the heads up on that. But also, not only with the Advent Conspiracy, I wanted to highlight that. We wanted to highlight, too, just benevolence, our local benevolence. You guys have, over the past 3 years, we've been able to give away over $42,000, and that's both to people within the Quest community and also within the community around us. And that's been through the circle of relationships that you all have in the community and that we've developed. We've partnered with the school districts, and we've also been able to collaborate with other churches in the benevolent area as well. So I just wanted to touch on that and just say thank you to you guys for just being generous, not only with your time and your talent, but with your treasures as well. So thank you.
Well, it's been almost 3 years now since Kevin first brought to me the proposition of coming back to St. Louis from Colorado and coming to start the youth group at this new church plant that would be Quest. And so it's been a crazy time of growing and learning. We've done some things, and we've said, let's never do that again. And we've done some things, and we said, hey, that's awesome. Let's totally do that again. But I want to just real quickly, before you guys can look at some of those pictures, but I want to just say thank you to all my volunteer leaders. And leaders, if you guys could stand up real quick. If you're in here and you volunteer at the road on Wednesday nights hanging out with the kids, if you guys could just stand up real quick. I've got a couple I know that are missing. So Jim Moore hangs out with our junior high guys. John and Jeff Shukart hang out with our senior high guys. And then Lindsay and Lisa, they hang out with the girls. And so I couldn't do it without them. They give up their time every week and a lot of energy, especially with those junior high boys, right, Jim? And so it's just, I couldn't do it without them. But I think of all the games, the videos, the sermons, the worship, the small groups, all this stuff, the most amazing thing that's come out of the road the past 3 years has been the baptisms. We've had 5 of our students and one of our volunteer leaders get baptized in the past 3 years. Yeah, absolutely. Give that. Jonathan was first. He's sitting back there in the back. And then the next year, Ben and Zach got baptized, and then this year, Ben Moore and Ava were baptized, and there she is. And then Alicia Takis as well, one of our other leaders who's not here, they were baptized. And that was the amazing thing for me, is that we've had that many students that said, I'm going to make this public declaration that I worship Christ, that I am a follower of him, and that I want everybody to know that, and I'm going to do it through this baptism. And so that's been an amazing thing for me to see the kids' faith and their love for Jesus these past 3 years. So, Karen?
Well, Quest Kids started almost 3 years ago with the idea of helping kids find direction for life by pointing them to Jesus Christ and his word. And we also have an amazing team of teachers and volunteers that just love the kids and love Christ. And we've just watched some of these children come in from infants or newborns, and now they're walking and talking. And last week I heard a story from one of the mothers, and she said, my daughter, she's 2.5 years old, was listening to radio, and she said, there was a new conference coming to town calling Dare to Be. And she looked at her mom and she says, that's not right, Mommy. It should be Dare to Be a Daniel. And that's what we studied all summer. And this is a 2.5-year-old. Children are absorbing all around them. They are picking up things, and they're trying to figure out, how do I live in this culture? What does it mean to have Christ, and what does it mean to be a Christian? Some of them, are just really seeking. And when we did this series, Ask Anything, these kids asked some amazing questions. It stumped some of the teachers. They are really thinking, don't ever underestimate what God can do in the life of a child. And we're just so thankful for these last couple of years. It has just been fun to watch these kids grow, both height-wise, but also mostly spiritually, to see them ask the questions and learn to love Jesus. And so this morning, we've brought the kids down here, and they're waiting outside. And so if you have a child, we brought nursery on down, we're going to ask you to, one parent, to go out there, sign your child out, give them the little card, your little matching card, and then bring your child back in here. And if the parents would get up and do that are going to take a cut. And while they're going to do that, we're going to have a meet and greet. And the topic this morning is, have you ever run out of gas? And if so, whose fault is it?
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Jan and I went to Columbia, Missouri to visit her mom, and we went to her mom's church, Presbyterian Church, First Presbyterian Church of Columbia. And we go, and we're kind of polite. We go to mom's church, and everything's kind of good. And then at the end of the service, somebody announces, okay, we're going to do the business meeting. And Jan and I look at each other like, okay, let's get up and go. And her mom leans over and says, oh, we need to stay for this. I'm like, huh, okay. It was the fastest business meeting I've ever seen. They handed out a ballot. They asked for affirmation by voice of the ballot. And they said, okay, we're done. And that was the entire business meeting. This one won't be that quick, but it will be really close. All right, so welcome to the business meeting portion of our service. Let me give you just an idea of how this is going to work. Our church is governed by a constitution and a set of bylaws. And I'm going to read them all right now. No, I'm not going to do that. But we approve these as newly elected membership. We approve these, I think it was in early February, late January of this year. Those bylaws call for at least one business meeting per year, held at a time and place that makes it readily available to the membership. I think we found it. Okay, those bylaws also delegate to the team of elders the authority of the congregation, except in 6 areas. And those 6 areas are this: changing the constitution of the bylaws. Membership has to vote on that. That's a great idea. Approving the annual budget. That's one of the items on the list today. Hiring the lead pastor. I think we're satisfied right now. The assumption of indebtedness in excess of 10% of the annual budget. We're not asking for that. Significantly change in the location or suitability of facilities for the church. I don't think we're really going to do that, but what we're going to do is vote on some things relative to facilities, and it's in the wide gray line area, so we thought, well, better to be inclusive than not. And then the final is approval of membership, and we have some new member candidates for approval today. So those are the 6 things. By the way, the elders are myself. Let's see, who else is here? Keith Lay. Have Keith stand up. Jeff Schuchart, who we call Tilo Thomas Loafman. There he is, Tilo. And we call his wife Freda Lolo. Okay. Tom Wilkinson, who we really don't have a nickname for. That's good. Yeah. And Kevin Hughes. And Brad Pinnell. All right. I think I got us all, did I? Did I miss anybody? We're good. All right, that's 7 of us. All right. Okay, so for each issue, we're going to present you with some relevant information. And then the members among us will have the opportunity to cast their vote. What may feel a little bit different than other business meetings that you've attended is that we're not going to open the floor to discussion or to questions. That was really what those 4 town hall meetings were for over the past month. And quite honestly, we had great attendance at those meetings, and they were really well received. We were really excited about how that worked. So the first order of business is we have to establish quorum. Quorum is established by having 20% of the members of the church present. So you may be wondering if you're a member or not. If you registered and were received at our inaugural meeting back in January as a member and you kind of signed everything, then you're a member. So we need a quorum of them, and we have 151 members, so a quorum is going to be 31 members. And then what we're going to do, what we'd like you to do is raise your hand if you're a member, and we're also going to pass out to you a ballot that you'll use here in just a moment. So could you raise your hand right now? And okay, first of all, I'm just going to say that's more than 31 people, so we'll call that a quorum. These guys will be passing out this very extensive ballot, which contains 2 items. If you don't have a pencil or a pen with you, you can actually just poke a hole through there. It's not electronically read, so there won't be any chat issues. All right, and while you're doing that, I'm going to start in with the first order of business, and hopefully you guys in the back row won't lose the blood in your hand by the time they get there. The first order of business is to approve or reject the proposed budget. The budget was established by our staff and then was reviewed at length by the elders. It was then presented at 2 of the town hall meetings for feedback and review. And then Keith Lay here, our financial liaison on the team of elders, is going to present most of what was presented at those town hall meetings. Keith?
All right, thank you, Brian. So I was asked to take 3 to 4 minutes to go through the material that we presented at the town hall meeting. So obviously I'm just going to hit a few of the high points, so you can breathe easy. As far as financial processes, we did review several of the financial processes that Kevin and Steve, they set up several good financial processes for us in the first 2 years. On this slide, probably just a couple points. Steve Hicks is the church treasurer, and so he handles the financial, activities of the church on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Also, a giving team has been established as far as counting on a weekly basis, and so, and I guess the main point I want to make about that is that individual giving is confidential. So the elder team, that includes Kevin, we don't know what any individuals give. We work with an accounting firm that closes the books on a quarterly basis, and so they give us quarterly reports. Let's see. We also wanted to establish a way for the congregation to see so next slide, please. We wanted to establish a way for the congregation to at least tell what we're doing on a quarterly basis. And so we put together this, what we put out on the website. So you can get to this out on our website by going to Our Request and then pulling that drop-down menu down. And it is basically total giving for each quarter, and then it's total expenses for each quarter. And then we have the budget was the budget that really Kevin and Steve planned this past year, and so we just divided that by 4 just to give you an idea of where we needed to be. So to give you the current year spending, we are estimated, and I didn't have all the giving in whenever we put these slides together for the town hall meeting, but we estimated total giving to be $551,000. So that would be $523,000 of general fund giving, $28,000 of designated giving. So that includes $17,000 of benevolence giving that was designated this year, and also $11,000 of outreach that was designated for outreach, primarily Advent Conspiracy. So our estimated total expenses for this year were $504,000. So that's a net difference of $47,000. The next slide just shows a plot of our giving on a monthly basis. So the blue is the general fund giving. The red is the designated for outreach giving, so that's primarily Advent Conspiracy. And then the green is what was designated for benevolence. And so, we really only mention that whenever we take communion, but folks have given, as Steve said, over the years, significantly to that, and we've been able to bless the community with that. So you'll notice about that, I guess, too, that giving tends to be a little higher at the end of the year, and also a little bit more sporadic in the summer whenever our attendance is a little more sporadic. So to give you a snapshot for where we are, we have a current bank balances of $560,000. We have we designated $160,000 of that as what we would consider operational reserve, and so that would be like 3 to 4 months of spending. And so then we have $400,000 above that operational reserve. So that what we have above the operational reserve is something that we could use for a down payment. Let's say if we decided to pursue a larger facility, or it could be used for renovations or something like that. So we were projecting at the time that we put this slide together that we had a monthly cash flow of $3,000. Also, just so you are aware, what we currently spend for Crestview, for the rent for Crestview, is $25,000. What we spend for Midwest Music is about $7,000. So the Midwest Music facility is right next to here, and the youth meet there on Wednesday nights. Also, we have some storage locally here that's $3,300 on an annual basis. So what we considered for this church year is that we added an estimate, and Brad will talk more about this in his facilities little presentation or his remarks that he makes right after me, but we added $31,000 for rent and utilities for an additional office and meeting space. And then we also reviewed the staff wages and compared them to national averages and made some increases in the staff wages, but most everything else stayed the same. So our high-level budget, so what you're kind of voting on this morning, would be our estimated expenses for this past year were $504,000. Our budgeted expenses for this coming year are $537,000. So that's a difference of $33,000, or an increase of 6.5%. We did provide this in detailed format for the town hall meeting. If you go to the next slide. But, I'm not going to go through all that this morning, but we broke that down, and then we had time for questions and answers. So now I want to talk about something else we did, which was just to compare it with some benchmarks that we received from the EFCA Central District. So what this is they divided these for the benchmark purposes into 4 different categories. And so this is what we would term a healthy church, or a church that's established. And so maybe 50% of their expenses would be spent on staff and wages, let's say. 20%, which is the red part of The red pie there would be spent on program. 20% would be spent on facilities, and then 10% on missions-related spending. Okay, so then if you look at a church in the planting stage, that would be, they might be spending 70% on staff and wages, and then 10% on programs, and 10% on facilities, and then 10% on missions-related activities. So we took our budget that we planned for this year, and we put it into those 4 categories. And so we're at 53% for staff and wages, so that's the blue part of the pie there. We're at 23% for programs. We're at 10% for what we would spend on facilities, and that's with the office space, that, possible future office space that we included in there. And then it's 14% for missions-related activities. So that gives you an idea of where we are, with respect to some benchmarks, and also hopefully gives you the numbers. We had a good opportunity for question and answers at the town hall meetings, and our plans were well received. Most of the comments were related to what would we do future for staff, and of course facilities. We had an opportunity to talk earlier in the month. So thank you very much, and Brad's going to come now, I think, or Brian's going to come.
Thanks, Heath. You bet. Okay, so if you remember, you have a paper ballot. You could, if you want to, vote now on that particular line item, either yes for approving the budget, no for not approving, or for rejecting the budget, or you can wait until Brad's done. If you, a little confusing, if you can say, yes, I approve the budget, but then Brad's going to talk to us about that line item in the budget about increased facilities, because it's the biggest part of the increase in the budget is those facilities. So he's going to talk to us about that, and you can actually approve the budget but not approve that particular line item. One other thing I want to add to what Keith said is some of you that like numbers may have caught the 1.7% in terms of staff increases. It was more than 1.7% overall. There were some ins and outs that were happening there in terms of people that were coming and going, part-time staff. So for those of you that were worried that we just handed out a 1.7% raise, it was a little bit better than that. So, okay, Brad.
All right, good morning, everybody. So like Keith, I'm going to try to give a brief overview of what we covered in the town hall meetings. So if we can go to the next slide. So high level, as we looked at the needs for Quest, we came up with 5 basic needs. One is worship and children's ministries, and I think of that as Sunday mornings, what we're doing right here. And we've been blessed to have access to this facility at the cost that we pay for it. But long term, we want to look at what the needs of Quest are going forward. So next was student ministry. So you heard Keith talk about use of the Midwest Music Building for that. So we're looking for a place where we can hold that those activities on a regular basis, give our students room to not only spread out and do the things that students do, but also have small groups and that sort of thing. Next is general meeting space. So think of Bible studies or use for the community, that sort of thing. Offices for the staff, and we think there's a certain level of efficiency that will come from giving them a place they can meet together. Quest East here is the wolf. You keep hearing that. So if you want to meet with the staff, just go over there. They're probably there. Visible presence in the community. So we want to be seen. So we're kind of looking along Clarkson Road, Manchester Road, Clayton Road area where we can put kind of hang out a shingle and let people know where to find Quest. So with that, we had a couple of potential approaches. One is the one-step. That's find a facility that will do all of those things. And then there's a two-step approach to find something that will do a portion of those things, that kind of the 2 to 5. And then long-term, we would look for something that would handle our needs for the foreseeable future beyond that. Next slide. So we came up with some foundational principles, and we went through a brainstorming session in one of our elders' meetings. It was really cool to see how it worked out. We came up with 4 things. So people should be the focus. And I like the quote that Brian came up with that night, that the most important place of our church is our people. Next is location. We talked about the visibility of Quest in the community. Functionality, that it meets the needs that we have as a body. And then last is unity. This is a big decision with regard to facilities. We want to make sure that it's not just a few people kind of making those decisions, but we're looking for feedback and input into that decision. So we asked the question, traditional or unconventional? Thinking of traditional as a traditional church building, and then maybe unconventional is maybe something else that looks a little bit different and is used in a different way in the community. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't take a traditional church building and use it in an unconventional way, so we're looking at that as well. But as we went through this, just looking at our basic needs that I've talked about and the ways a traditional building might be used versus an unconventional approach to that. Next slide. So here are some of the options that we've looked at. So one is Crestview Middle School, to stay where we are and keep doing what we're doing. That comes with certainly a financial benefit to it in terms of what we pay for the space, but it also has some logistical issues. Use Crestview Middle School and then lease some other space somewhere, kind of the two-step approach that we talked about earlier. We've looked at Lafayette High School as a potential, a little bit bigger facility. It is a little bit further away, so we've kicked that one around. We think we may have some more logistical issues with that with regard to conflicts with a high school versus a middle school. A facility purchase, is there something out there that would meet all of our needs in that one-step approach? A strip center, do we build something long-term? Those are the kinds of things that we're kind of considering. Next slide. So some of our considerations, there's office space. It's actually 254 Clarkson, I believe. So that $31,000 that's in the budget, we kind of based it off of this for as far as what we think the cost would be to pick up that space. We're not sure that space is actually going to work for us, so we're still mulling that over, but there's some challenges with it that may keep us from going there. But from a budget perspective, that's the type of thing we're looking for, and we think we could find it around that number. So that's why we've got that in the budget, and obviously we'll continue to communicate as we work on that and come up with options for us. I mentioned Lafayette High School, Midwest Music as far as a purchase. I put the $1.8 million up there. We're just ballparking where that is. They don't have an actual asking price at this point, but it is something that we've been considering for a long time. Matter of fact, with our move to Crestview, this building has been a possibility all along, and we continue to have discussions there. There's some other things that we've looked at as well. Next slide. And so all of this has kind of culminated with the town hall meetings and that sort of thing, with some basic observations and feedback that we've gotten. So we want to be a church in and for the community, which is one of the things that we talk about every week at Quest. And we really got feedback from the congregation that that's what we want to be. We don't want a facility that's going to create a boat anchor or hold us back from doing ministry. So we've got a bent towards the unconventional versus the conventional. So again, whether that's a traditional building used in an unconventional way, or it's a multi-purpose center that we also use for church, but something that benefits the community. We're right now going after the two-step approach. So stay at Crestview for the time being. Look for something that's going to meet those other needs that I listed on that first slide. Determine the purpose and needs to be met before we purchase a facility. We want to understand the community, what needs are out there, what do we need in a facility to meet those needs so we can be most impactful in the community. And then last, we don't want to be constrained by the building finances. So obviously we need a place to meet. We want to gather and that sort of thing, but we want to be able to, most of all, be able to work in the community and have an impact there. Okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, so if you're a member, you can now cast your vote about whether you approve or reject the budget and whether you approve or reject that facilities line item, which is about $31,000 for some office space and some meeting space, and hopefully a space that will meet the needs of our youth group and storage needs as well. All right, and then we've got some folks out and about collecting those, so if you got it, just kind of raise your hand there where the people can see it while I move on to the next thing. By the way, we need a simple majority vote for both those issues, for each of those issues, for the issues to be passed. All right? So, as we move into affirmation of new members, first a quick note about membership. If you're not a member of this church, we want you to know that you are more than welcome as a part of our fellowship. As a matter of fact, us as members probably don't even know who other members are and who other members aren't. We're grateful that you're a part of our fellowship and have chosen us. Membership, however, simply involves making a stronger commitment to the purpose, the people, and the ministries of this church. It's just simply a way of identifying with this particular body of believers and saying, yes, I'm with you through thick and thin. All right, our bylaws. Oh, those bylaws. On page 7. Article 3, Section 1, subsection 1. A. So, they state that prospective members will meet the following requirements. A credible profession of faith in Christ and evidence of a desire to live in consistent Christian life. A peaceable respect for the statement of faith and a commitment to submit to the discipline of this local body. A sincere commitment to invest time, talent, and treasures in the ministry of Quest for the good of the whole and to honor God. And you have to be 18 years old. Except we can give exceptions if there's some really bright kids. Okay, and then the procedure goes like this to become a member. They attend some membership classes, and then they share their personal testimony of faith with selected elders or their designees. And so the folks that I'm about to let you know about, hold that, have all met with at least one elder, usually two of us, and we have affirmed they've met the requirements for membership, and further, the team of elders have unanimously approved each of these candidates. And so before I go further, I'm going to introduce who those are. So next slide. I'll have you stand. Bill and Annie Bear are right over here. Dave and Kirsten Bartholomew, stay standing, please. Dave and Kirsten are right behind them. Ben and Katie Homan are over here. You may recognize Ben. He preached here one morning. Dave and Regal Green. Are we here this morning? Dave and Regal are not here this morning, right? Okay. Carol Meter is in California, not here. And Marie Millsap, I know she's here. All right. All right, very good. Okay, so these are the folks that are up for membership, and you guys can sit down now. Thank you. Practically speaking, we know it's impossible for each of our existing members to know about each of the member candidates, and it's only going to get more difficult as we grow. So the elders ask for your trust in that we've executed our responsibility and vetted those candidates as we should. So now what we're asking is that you affirm these candidates, essentially to offer the right hand of fellowship, to give our voice of welcome. And you can do that by simply voicing all in favor of these member candidates being accepted into our fellowship of members. Please indicate so with a hearty aye. Hearing by voice the affirmation of the existing members, I do so declare. The candidate members joined into the fellowship of our members. Let's indicate with a round of applause. I see the men desperately counting ballots out there. This was supposed to take just a tad longer. Let me just see if they're ready. Yeah, song and dance. I'm getting the high sign. Here it comes. Running in from. Don't start your asthma, Jeff. All right, thanks. Okay, budget, we have unanimous approval. And facilities, we have unanimous approval. All right, that's it. That's the end of the business meeting. I so declare the meeting ended. And Kevin, are you up next to continue our conversation? Who's up next? Steve's up next. I'll let them wrestle it out. I'm out of here. Thank you.
Steve, we are way behind on time. Either we need to make it really small or do it next week.
I'll do it really quick. Hey, I won. Yeah. No. Actually, so we're in the present, and then Kevin's going to be talking about the future. Real quick, guys, I'm going to blaze through this. This Serve St. Louis. First, I want to thank the elders for all their hard work. These guys have really been working hard and behind the scenes, and I want to thank you guys. Serve St. Louis is really a great opportunity for us to be in and for the community. We've had a team working on it for several months. Our 4 projects: Soldiers Wish List, Working at the Well, New City Fellowship, and helping the elderly here in West County with some yard work. 2 things I want to point out. The projects are out in the system, or you can sign up in the foyer. Sign up early so it helps us with resources and what we have to purchase. And then also for Soldiers Wish List, which are packages, care packages that go to our soldiers overseas. At the door when you guys leave today, there will be a list of items that you guys could help out with. That would be really great if you feel like helping with that. And with that, that's all I have, and I'll talk more about Serve St. Louis in the coming weeks. Thanks.
All right, now that was awesome. Okay. Hey, guys, we want to talk about the future a little bit, but if we do, we'll be here till about noon. So we're going to make an adjustment here. What I'd like to ask is if the new members, if you guys would come forward, come up here, and if the elders would come, and we need 2 of them to hang out with Marie right here, and we need 1 with each of the others. Here's what we're going to do, is we're going to ask, why don't you guys, or you're going over there, aren't you? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Why don't you guys stay right there? And so here's what we're going to do. So we're going to have 4 stations, I think. 1, 2, yeah, why don't you guys go way over to the corner? Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're a little adjusting on the fly here. The real business of the church is to actually worship an awesome and eternal God. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, so here's the reason we did this today, is that we have 4 values in Quest. The values that we want to live out. So if someone comes to our church, so if you're new here today, here's what we hope you experienced. Now, if you didn't, you're free to tell us, or maybe come back and give us another chance. But here are our values. First of all, it's love. At the end of the day, Christians are defined on whether their ability to love. So we want to be a place that loves. We're not perfect about it. Just so you know, if you're looking for a perfect church to love, this isn't it. I want you to keep looking, okay? But because it's not going to be here. But we want to love in a very significant personal way. Second value that we have is integrity. That's why we tell you what we have financially, what we spend financially, what it's all about financially. That's why, because we want to be a people full of integrity. We want to have integrity with money. We want to have integrity with our relationships. We want to have integrity with the gospel. We want to have full of integrity. Third, we want to be relevant. We have to be relevant, but not just relevant to our culture. We have to be relevant to God. And sometimes trying to be so relevant to our culture, we forget to be relevant to God. And sometimes wanting to be so relevant to God, we forget that there's an audience that needs to have that be relevant to them. And so we want to be relevant. And last is that we want to be patient. You see, God is patient, right? He says he is patient so that all would come to repentance. And guess what? He's profoundly patient with me. And if we can be patient with me, then we ought to be patient with each other. And that you have the opportunity, if you're a skeptic or an inquirer, to sit in this place and be among us and be in the circle of relationships for as long as it takes for God to work in your life. We'll be patient. That's his business, not ours. We let you be who you are, okay? And so the real business of the church is to worship. And so this morning what we're going to do is we're going to celebrate with communion. So is the band. Oh, the band. I should have invited the band up. I should have invited them first. But we're going to do communion together. So here's the deal. If you're a follower of Jesus, if you've given your life to him, doesn't matter if you belong to this church or whatever. If you're a follower of Jesus, we invite you this morning to come and to take communion. Because what we do is we celebrate the fact that the bread represents his body broken for us. that the cup represents his blood shed for us. Because actually we are convinced in this church that the world is like a lost flock of sheep that are in distress, looking for the good shepherd. And that Jesus actually is him who gave his life for us. And if you put your faith in him this morning, we would invite you to come and to worship him. And so there's going to be a song. And then after that song, I'll invite you to come. And here's the way we're going to do it a little differently today. We're going to go row by row. I know we're getting a little organized. It's a little weird. But we're going to go the first row, then second row, then third row. And he just have you come and go to one side or the other and then loop around and come back in. It'll be incredibly organized. It'll just be beyond what you can imagine. I like it chaos, but I think we've decided we need to be a little more organized. So you can come. And here's what I'd like you to do. Take a napkin, then take a piece of bread, and then dip it, and then take it back to your seat with you. Now, it'll be really soggy, but that's the way it goes. Sorry. But go back to your seat and hold on to it, and then we are going to take it together. The unity of the body under the lordship of Jesus Christ, that we will commit ourselves to being his people from here until eternity. Okay? That's what we're committing to. All right? So you guys, let me pray for us, and then let's sing a song, and then I'll invite you to come and take communion. Father, we are so grateful for the fact that you care about all the details, and that you care not only about facilities and money, but you honestly care about those things. And that we want to be full of integrity and fully honest and fully upfront. And Father, I don't know if we could be even kind of blown away a little bit by the unity of a unanimous vote on those things. So Father, we're on the same page. And we want to be on your page, doing what you want us to do. But at the end of the day, when all of these things burn, the only thing that's going to be left is the reality of your presence and your word. And we want to live for that. And so what we're going to do here, we look forward to doing with your Son in heaven. Because he said he wouldn't do it again until that day of the feast in heaven with him. But we do this in remembrance of what Jesus did for us. That he gave his life. He gave his body on a cross. He shed his blood for us. And you had us in mind. Every one of us in mind. When you hung on that cross. And took our sin on your shoulders. So that we might be set free. And so we give you thanks for that. We come here to worship you. Amen.